If your organization uses Microsoft Teams, then today might be an exciting day, as Microsoft has announced a brand new client for Teams that fixes many of the negative aspects of the now called Classic client. So let's jump across to Microsoft's blog post on this and take a look at just what we're getting. So you can see in this blog post we have some visuals of the new Teams client, but the most important thing that is highlighted here is the responsiveness and performance of the new client. I think one of the biggest pieces of feedback that I've heard that's negative about using Teams is that the client is just very slow and resource hungry. And particularly if you're using it on older hardware, it can be very difficult to do anything else while you're running Teams. This new client is built from the ground up to make it easier to run the software with the performance that you might expect from a modern piece of software, and not with the degraded situation that you might have, particularly if you're running older or less powerful hardware in the past. And as you can see from this video that Microsoft released with the launch, the new Teams is significantly faster than the classic Teams. It also uses less resources and is quicker once you're in the application, so it should be a very good upgrade. And you can also see that one of the other important updates is that you can now be logged into multiple organizations inside Teams. So we're going to take a look at what that looks like. Now there are two steps to getting started with the new Teams client, so let's take a look first at how you enable this within your organization. So here we are in the Teams Admin Center, and we are going to jump into Teams Update Policies. You can either update your global policy, or you can create a policy which is going to be for a subset of your users if you want certain users to try out the new Teams. I'm just going to jump into the global policy, and I have a new option here of use new Teams client. So right now this says Microsoft controlled. I'm going to change that to users can choose, and I'm going to apply that and confirm. And that has now been applied to my global policy. Now I do want to highlight that the default for that new setting was not disabled, but was Microsoft controlled. And the blog post does not explicitly outline how that Microsoft controlled setting is going to roll out. I've tried this in a different tenant where I had the preview version of Teams enabled, but I had left the default setting of Microsoft controlled, and I wasn't seeing the switch for the new Teams client. However, if you're in an environment where you definitely don't want some users or all of your users to see this new client, then I would suggest for safety that you change that setting to not enabled, which would imply that you're not going to see that flag at any time, even if Microsoft has determined that it's your time to get the rollout of the new client until you're ready for it. I'm sure in the coming days or weeks there will be some clarity from Microsoft on exactly what that setting of Microsoft controlled means, but I know there are some environments where you definitely don't want to see this. So in that situation, I would select not enabled for the time being, just to be 100% sure that your users aren't going to start seeing this. But you can see I have a try new Teams flag at the top left of my Teams client. So I'm just going to turn this on. And you can see it gives me the option of what is going to happen with my preview. And I can say get it now. And then it just starts downloading the new Teams update. It's really easy to get the new Teams, but it's even easier to show your support by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and making sure you hit the bell icon so you find out the next time I release a video. And after a couple of minutes, Teams reloads, and you can see I've got my new Teams turned on here. It shows me that I'm in the preview up here, and mostly it looks very similar. If I change my settings and change my appearance so that I'm in light mode instead, I think that actually the look of this looks more different if you're in light mode than if you're in dark mode. Now, the first thing I'm going to try is one of these highlighted features. I'm going to add another one of my accounts to this Teams client. So I'm going to go ahead and say add Megan's account from my dev tenant. And you can see that is now logged in here. I've still got access to my primary account here. So that is a really important feature, particularly for those who are working across multiple different tenants. This is a very important feature to help to manage that process. So now if I jump into a channel, we can see that another change here is that my channels now run from top to bottom. So it's a bit more like a feed that you see on social media than from having everything at the bottom and then adding your announcements or your posts at the bottom. So I can just post up here. And immediately I have added a post to the top of my feed here, which makes it a little bit easier to track where things are at in my feed. Now, one of the important things that Microsoft has highlighted is how easy it is to switch back and forth between the new client and the old client. And you can see I have new Teams turned on here. If I just switch this off, Teams immediately reloads back into my default tenant. Now, I do need to highlight that I was logged in as Megan when I switched that off, and it has jumped me back into Nick again. So if I wanted to get back into Megan's account, I would have to sign out and sign back in as I had before, as this stands right now. Now, interestingly, if I turn the new Teams back on, it is back in with Megan again. So just be aware of that as you're switching back and forth between the new Teams and the classic Teams, you may, if you're using multiple different tenant accounts in there, see a bit of bouncing around there based on this initial experience that I'm having with it. So just be aware of that and how that might impact you. You don't want your users thinking they're working in one environment when in fact they are working in a different environment instead. But the reason that this toggle exists is that not everything that is in the Teams Classic client is currently in the Teams Preview client, the new Teams. So we're not seeing in there some of the advanced calling features, things like queues. We're not seeing breakout rooms, and there are a few other things that you can see in the blog post that aren't available in the new client. So the idea is that if you want to use something that you can only get in the new client or only get in the old client, it's a really easy process to switch between the two so that you're not missing out on anything. Now, having said that, this new client is only available on Windows. It is only available as the Windows client. It's not available through the web. If you're using Mac or something else, you can't get this right now. But you can see it's a really easy process to get your organization up and running with this. It's a really easy process for your users to start trying it out. So if you are inclined to want to know what's going on with Teams and you want to get a bit of a lighter weight client on your machines, and particularly if you're not using things like advanced calling features like call queues or breakout rooms or other more advanced features in Teams, this may be a great thing for you to try out. So I'm certainly excited about using this new Teams. I have personally used Teams on devices in the past where I have found that its resource-hungry nature has made it quite difficult to run. And even on some Microsoft devices like the Microsoft Surface Go devices, for example, because they're quite low powered, Teams has been a bit of a bottleneck on devices like that. So certainly I'm excited that this problem is being resolved by Microsoft and they have chosen to develop a new version of Teams. The Teams Classic isn't going anywhere right now. That is going to stick around for quite a while the new Teams continues to get developed and gains feature parity with the classic Teams. So while there is no impetus to have to change right now, it is very easy, as you've seen, to start trying this out in your organization and to get your users start trying this out if you want to. So have a go with it, play around with it, see how it works for you. Leave some comments on the video if you like about your experiences with it. Hopefully this has been useful to you, and until next time, bye-bye.